Hi, welcome again. This is part 2 of the 2-part message on strong people, weak people and cowards. I suppose that's the title. But it's a message about evangelism. So welcome again at your service in Caris. I hope you've got something to take notes. And I hope you've been finding these messages as worthy of taking notes. So I'm continuing on about what I had spoken about in my last message. In my last message, I'll give you a quick run over from what I can remember, because they're not written messages, so I don't know exactly what I've said. I mentioned about how a church that I've been going to, I have had in my heart that it's time for them to step out and start bringing people to church and to start stepping out for God, and therefore for people to be encouraged to evangelize, and not just encouraged, but for those that have no experience to be trained up in it. I'm happy to do all that for them. I'm happy to encourage people. I'm happy to teach them evangelism. I'm happy to take them out. I'm happy to create an evangelism course if need be, etc. I've mentioned this to their pastor, and I then sent their pastor some questions that I'd like to ask their people. Are you regular at this church? And things like, I suppose I'll work on those questions, because I will certainly develop them for, if not for this church, for another church. I've got to do it somewhere. I've got to do this. Is this my head saying that I've got to do this? Is this the Holy Spirit in my heart saying I've got to do this? I believe this is from God. It could just be my head. I believe this is Caris. And you know what I'm talking about. I believe that in this message right here, right now, God wants me to express a bit further courage, weakness, and cowardice. And to, at the end of this message, encourage you to contact us about learning evangelism and getting organised to get out there. Am I going to scare you away because of this message? Maybe. If you leave the group because of a message like this, well, so be it. Because as far as this message is concerned, there's 3 kinds of people: strong people, weak people, and cowards, being a little bit different to the weak people. Are you strong enough to stand up for God? Well, if you have been standing up for God and going out and telling people about God and bringing new people to church because of it, etc., then obviously you're strong in at least that aspect of Christianity. And it is a very important aspect of Christianity. We need to walk away from sin and walk towards godliness. That is a very important aspect of Christianity. That is the act of charis. And we need to exude God from us, and that is charisma. And that's more about the gifts of God coming from us. The gifts of the Holy Spirit were things like speaking in tongues, interpretation of tongues, prophecy, gifts of knowledge and wisdom, gifts of healing, etc. I don't recall them all. And that's what the word charisma actually means. We think of it differently these days. Between charis and charisma, we have a word that comes from charis, and charisma comes from it. And it's charizomai, something like that. Again, I may just be learning these words over the last week or so I don't even know myself. But that's a word of more so unmerited favour. Yet it sits between the change of a person from sinfulness to godliness and the acts of God through a person, being those gifts of the Spirit. And that's where unmerited favour sits. Yet on the other end of charis, we have other words that are related to it, because it came from a word which was kairo, I believe, and there's another word kara, and those two words are related, and I think it's kairo where charis comes from, and that's a word to do with joy and gladness, and it's also a greeting, a hail, or good tidings, or farewell, etc. Now, they're all good things, but the one that holds them all together is charis, the action of God turning you away from sin and turning you towards God and godliness. Yet, if you are not getting the courage of God, if you're not moving from coward to spectator and then on towards being courageous, being a Daniel or being a Samson, and Samson was considered more strong than courageous, but at the end Samson took courage and called God back into his life and destroyed himself amongst all the Philistines by just pushing the pillars of the building apart and destroying the building. Excuse me. Courageous people in the Bible. We are all called to the courage of evangelism. If you don't have the experience and you're afraid of it because of lack of experience, not a problem. We'll either connect you to people that are experienced, or we'll train you up, or we'll take you out. That's the idea anyway. This is a very new group, and this is therefore a new concept within the group, and therefore no one's actually done this yet. I've been going out and doing a couple of things leading towards it, but I haven't put any training together yet, and I haven't been directly telling people about God yet. One or two I have. That's a different story. So, back to the battle we face. Courage or weakness or total cowardness. Every person is called to be an evangelist, not in the office of an evangelist, as in the fivefold ministry, pastors, prophets, teachers, apostles and evangelists, but even an usher is called to evangelize. Even a counsellor is called to evangelize. Even somebody in the hospital ministry is called to not just pray for people, but to tell them about God as well, evangelize. Even if your ministry is in the food for the hungry pantry that hands out food, don't just hand out food, but look for opportunities to tell people about God. Because the reason we do it is to get opportunities to tell people about God, to then evangelize. Why am I on about evangelism so much lately? Seems to be what God's put in my heart. Why am I on about it in this facet? It seems to be the natural step from the message that came back to me, which was, I'm leaning towards, and I'm just going to say this rather than read it, towards not letting you approach people directly. It's his church. I'm not going to do anything that's not within his will. And he will contemplate the online survey. I will look at the response. An online questionnaire maybe as an option. But still, does an online questionnaire give you courage? Okay, let's look at what can take you from being weak or a coward, even worse, to having courage. Well, the old option is preach at them. And preach at them, well, if they're strong, they'll stand up and go do something. If they're weak, they'll just go, oh, that was an interesting message. Okay, I'll come back and see what they preach about next week. But if they're a coward, you lose them. They run away to another church or stop going to church entirely. You don't want to do that. So we avoid the strong messages. Pastors are afraid of the strong messages. Fair enough. So maybe we can't preach it. Or maybe we can sort of preach it softly in the hope that maybe 1 or 2 out of 1,000 people might happen to shift from being weak to being a bit strong. But then we still don't have any way to find out what they'll do, or if they have any experience, or if anyone can go out with them to train them up. And we don't have any training for evangelists anyway. It's not a great option. So what are the other options? The online questionnaire. Great. My experience of online questionnaires is that they don't do anything either. You probably get a better result out of preaching it. And maybe out of preaching it, you might encourage 1 or 2 to stand up and evangelize. Those 1 or 2 might go out, and because they're inexperienced, they might fail and they might become scared. And the onlookers will still be onlookers. But you might have half a dozen cowards that will run away and go to some other church. Same thing with the online questionnaire, almost. But will the online questionnaire encourage those weak people who might become strong? Maybe 1 or 2%. I think not, though. I think generally you might scare away the cowards still. Oh, this church is pushy. I'm going to run away. I'm not going to tell them why I'm running away. I have a big problem with not having a follow-up team. I'm not talking about follow-up for somebody that's just been saved. I'm talking about follow-up for the people who have left the church. I have a big problem of not having evangelism teams and evangelism training. I have a big problem of not talking to people about evangelism. How will it grow if it's not planted? How will it be planted if somebody doesn't do it? Reminds me of a couple of scriptures on planting and sowing, and other scriptures on Paul said, I planted and Apollos watered, and things like that, saying that one person gives a message and another person adds to it. Well, not just the message, an actual system, and it doesn't have to be a formal system or whatever, at least some kind of thoughtful process, some kind of training is better than nothing at all. I think I will take upon a church regularly. And when I say that, even though I've been going to this church, I don't consider them my church. This church is a church that in my 20s was my church. As I said, I used to be an usher there, etc. And I actually went to Bible college through that church. That church has a Bible college. And it's a very small church in comparison to what it used to be. There used to be, I'd have to guess, close to at least 300 people turn up at a service, towards maybe 400 for 3 services a day, for 3 services on a Sunday. These days, it's just 1 service on a Sunday, and somewhere around 100, 120. I don't think there'd be 150 people turn up. And I'm told that the number's dwindling. Yet there's something in me that says, work with them. Is it my head? You tell me, people. I wasn't jesting, but maybe I could say that in jest, because how many people have got back to me about any of these messages? 2 or 3 of the same people always. I might get a comment from Monique, I might get a comment from Dave, and if I'm really lucky I might get some image from one of the people in Kenya. It's really funny to think most of the people in this group are from Australia, but people in Kenya seem to be responding more than the Australians, except for Dave and Monique. But Dave and Monique are different. Monique, as many of you might know, is my ex-wife. I was married to Monique back in that period, but when I left the church, I also left work, and that was just too much for Monique. She couldn't be married to a non-Christian who wasn't working, and I wasn't willing to stand up for a belief that I just lost belief in myself. But anyway, it's another story. That's irrelevant. We've never lost contact, and we've never thought badly about each other, etc. So, fine, good. I'm glad she's still working with me in a sense, and now that I'm back, she's happily working with the group, and she'll make comments, etc. But I expect that from Monique. Dave, I'm glad there is one other person in the group who is doing more than the very, very odd paragraph, and there's been one person that's sent a paragraph or 2, which compared to the majority is a great deal of activity. People, why are you in a group that is pushing you to activity for God and just saying, oh, that was a good message, wonder what he's going to talk about next? I mean, is that what you're really doing? I certainly don't get it. Are you ready to do something for God? Now, it doesn't have to be something for this group. Do it for your own church. Become a counsellor in your church. Become an usher in your church. Become a part of the kitchen staff in your church, or become an evangelist for your church, go into ministry, whatever. Back to the parable of the talents. A master had 3 servants that he gave talents to. He might have had a dozen servants, but he gave talents to only 3 of them. 5 to one, 2 to another, and 1 to a third, according to their ability. No wonder he gave 1 to the third one, because that person had no ability. Still, he got a talent. And the one who had 5 doubled it and got 10. The one who had 2 doubled it and got 4. The one who had 1 was quite afraid and went and buried that talent. And when the master came back, he said, the first one came in and said, here's your 5 talents, which is an amount of money. I have doubled it. I've now got 10 for you. And he said, good servant, I'll put you in charge of much. The second one came in, same thing, I've doubled it, good servant, I'll put you in charge of much. The third one came in and said, I was so afraid that I went and buried this talent so I wouldn't lose it, because you make money where you haven't even invested, kind of thing. It wasn't those words, but same thing. He said, you sow where you didn't reap, for example, and that's a farming term for making money where you didn't invest it. And the master said, I'm going to take that talent and give it to the one that has 10, because he did the right thing, and for the other servants to throw this servant out where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth, a horrible place, because that is an evil servant by not doing what was expected. God expects us all to tell others about God, about Jesus. Is this a harsh message? It might be slightly harsh. I don't know. But why? Look, you guys really aren't doing much. Not in this group anyway. If you're doing stuff in your own church, great, fine. You're not even doing messages and stuff in this church, in this group. It's not a church. Create messages like this, or read a few Bible verses and tell us what you thought of those Bible verses. Next month there is a challenge. I'm going to give $50 as long as there's at least 5 people that enter. I'm going to give $50 to the one that got the most likes. If 2 people got 3 likes on each of their best ones, and that's the best that was done, and one of those 2 people put in a message every day and therefore put in 30 messages, and the other one put in 3 messages, well, it's going to go to the one that put in the most effort, the 30 messages. So that's the challenge for next month. Now, back to where I was. Courage, sitting around doing nothing, or cowardice. Sitting around doing nothing, you might as well run away. All I'm doing is saying, stand up and do what God told you to do. It's not me that is telling you to do this. I'm the one speaking the words right now. But all I'm speaking about is what the Bible tells us to do. To not hide that light, to bear that cross, to go into all the world and make disciples of all nations. And other verses. We are not here just to receive, just to be weak. We are here to stand up for God. Because whoever declares me before men, I'll declare before my Father in heaven. Whoever denies me before men, I'll deny before my Father in heaven. And that's what evangelism is about. Are you just not telling people? and in I can't think of the word, in natural consideration of it. That's not what I'm looking at. And therefore, because of that, there's a word for it anyway. You are therefore doing the same as denying Jesus merely by not promoting God. You've got a job to do. Is this harsh? I think not. And before I go on, if you are in that third group and want to run away, before you run away, please, if you're running away from a church, tell the pastor what he or that church has done wrong first, or she in some cases. If you're running away from this group, contact me and tell me what I've done wrong, or what other members of this group have done wrong. It's better to be a godly person by shining that light on the problems that are out there, being us if that's the case, and telling us we can't fix what we don't know, whether it be me or pastors in churches. Please be the kind of person that will express another person's issues to them so that they can fix it. That's being kind. It's slander if you... I had to think of the right word without using a swear word. It's slander if you tell somebody else about it and not that person themselves. And it's godly if you go to a person for the reason of correcting them. Okay? I might be wrong about this, but the compulsion is in me to start getting people moving for God. And God works by putting a compulsion in you. Charis, as we know, is turning from sin to godliness, and it's by God turning you to Christ. It is an action of God moving your position. Might be turning you around, but it's still moving your position. I am being moved on this issue, and that's one of the reasons I believe it's from God. It's also a very biblical thing, and that's another reason I believe it's from God. It's also in my heart, and that's another reason I believe it's from God. Could it be in my head? Well, that's a possibility, but I've got no reasons to believe it's in my head. So, I'll wrap up here, unless I think of, please, don't hide your talent. Before I go, if you happen to be watching this, and if you happen to live in the Gold Coast or Brisbane area, please, if you think your church may be ready for evangelism, I'd love to come and talk with your pastor or the like, maybe even start going to your church. I don't know. I don't know how this is going to work at this stage. God hasn't told me that. All I know is it's time to move. And being organised is going to be the big difference in this move compared to any other move that's happened before. And I'm ready to step up. So, I will go to any church, to any pastor, to any group of people that are willing. I will train people in evangelism. I will encourage people to evangelize. I will do whatever it takes. Please talk to your pastors if you live on the Gold Coast or in Brisbane, and see if they are willing to either talk to me or let me talk to their people. your people. Our people. Because if you're in this group, you should be coming to realise that we are a united group. There might be people in this group from the Catholic Church, the Baptist Church, the Church of Christ, Assemblies of God, Pentecostal churches, or other churches, Uniting Church, whatever. Lots of different churches. But we are all united in this group. And this group will have members eventually in churches everywhere. So it will be an interchurch group. So I'm happy to work with any churches that are willing to listen. If you live in the Gold Coast, Brisbane area, there's the invitation. So, wrapping it up, I hope you got something from this. If it was not interesting, tell us. If it was great, tell us. If it was good, post it on to other people. Govern well in Charis.